Hi, Searching Solitude here. Today I thought I'd mix it up a little bit with a fairly easy tie. It's my version of rockworm. I tend not to like to fish with San Juan worms, trying to be more of a purist. But occasionally, when the river's blown out, when nothing else will work, I'm not above tying on a worm of some sort and giving it a go. This one's a little bit different though. My version of the rockworm is really fairly simple. Let me give you a look at it. And so really simple because it really only uses three materials, I suppose, or two plus a cheat, I guess. First thing is tying it on a slightly different kind of hook. This is a Mustad 37160 emerger hook is what they call it. And I use this, about the only thing I use this kind of hook for, because it has that natural swimming sort of motion, like there's motion in the hook already. So that's what we're going for. This happens to be a size 18, which I know seems gigantic for an 18, but that's the way Mustad sizes it. I've also got a box of 20s in my hand, but today we've got a size 18 in the hook. The materials for the day, we're going to use red 8/0 Gouda broad thread. You could get away with 6/0 for sure, and micro tubing, or sometimes under the brand name Larva Lace. It's clear tubing and it's got some stretchiness to it. That's going to be really important. And the last ingredient, a black Sharpie. Alright, so let me bring you in real tight here and get started. We begin by putting our thread, tying our thread on behind the eye, and working our way up in touching turns. The name of the game here is coverage. I want the entire hook shank covered in thread so that there's no glare, none of that metal shining through. Now I'm going to have a second pass at it on the way up towards the hook eye, but for now I'm going to get touching turns as best I can, covering every space on this hook with red thread. I'm taking it well back deep into the bend. Because the body of this fly is microtubing, it really is very durable, and so even if the bend here is in a brown's teeth, was still going to be okay. It's still going to hold up nicely. Now I'm grabbing my microtubing, and to begin the microtubing, I'm not just going to tie this on. I suppose you could, but I tend to cut an angle on the very end of the tubing, so it gives me something to kind of latch onto with my thread. Get one or two more wraps, and you can see I'm deep into the bend and I haven't even tied it on yet. I'm going to go even deeper still. This can be a little tedious because we'll work in between the vise jaws and the thread, but once you got it, I'm wrapping back towards deeper into the bend, and then I'll start coming forward, and now's where it counts. Touching turns. I want a nice smooth body, doing what I can. I'm gonna tie down the butt end of that micro tubing, crushing it down, trying to make it look seamless. I don't want any tapering in there. Okay, so now, as I get the second layer of thread, the true color of the thread starts to come out. Since I'm using red thread, now the body really begins to look a deeper red as I get the second coat of thread on the shank. And continue forward, but we're not quite there yet. There's going to be one trick we're going to throw in here. It really helps having a true rotary vise, and you'll see in a minute why. If I let my thread dangle here, I'm likely to have, I'm holding it tight, I'm likely to have the thread kind of break loose and start to hang down here towards the eye. So what I can do with a rotary is I can turn it sideways and let it hang, and the thread's not working its way towards the eye. If you don't have a rotary vise, you might reposition the shank in the hook. Alright, so here's where we're going to add a little bit of a trick into this fly, or a little bit more realism. I'm going to go back and build a big ball. We've all seen, like on earthworms and even aquatic worms, they have this big, I don't know what the structure is called on its body, but they've got this big bulbous section near the head. Maybe you can, if you know what it's called, you can put it in the comments. But I'm going to use my thread to really create a tapered balloon in the body. I'm not going to let it go too much towards the rear, too much towards the eye. I want to keep it very centralized and get it right nice and big, a distinct swelling in the body in that one place. Okay, now I can continue working my thread. Now that I've done that, work my thread forward and touching turns all the way to the eye. Now break out your marker, your Sharpie, and very carefully touch just the swollen part that you just built with thread. Touch that with your black marker. Careful, it will bleed depending on the thread you're using, but you want to keep just that swollen part. Turn it black. Now I guess you could have swapped out thread and switched to black thread, but I told you I wanted to keep this a really simple tie, and that's how I'm doing it today. One thread, one color. Once you feel like you've got that swollen structure on the worm's body, good and black, you didn't let it bleed forward, now the fun begins. Let that thread hang, grab your microtubing, and under tension, really pull it tight. Not so tight it comes loose, but we're really putting a stretch. Shorten up your thread because you're going to be going around the shank here many times. And start wrapping in touching turns up the shank of the hook, each turn touching the last, covering the thread with this clear microtubing. That takes a little bit, but you'll get there. One turn touching the next. You'll begin to see that the body of your worm starts to take on a kind of a waxy, shiny look. Not to mention adds a whole lot of durability. Fishing, bouncing on the rocks, getting caught on the fish's teeth, using your forceps to pull it out of the jaws of your fish. It's going to hold up real nice using this microtubing. It also creates, if the thread didn't do it on its own, it creates nice segmentation. Again, just like a worm, earthworm, or aquatic worm would have. And careful you don't get tangled here. You've got to keep your tubing under tension, because if you let go of the tubing even for a second, get this, there we go. If you let go of the tubing even for a second, it's going to unravel on you. Definitely need to keep it under tension. And it gets a little tricky as you get around that black bulbous section that you tied. Just keep it in touching turns, go slow, and wrap it all the way up. Your fly will, the hook will start to give a little bit here. Be careful, you don't want to break the shank. I'm not applying that much tension, but we're close. Keeping that tubing as thin. Touching turns here. Keep it out of the thread. There we go. And keep going. A couple more wraps gets me almost to the eye. Now here it's going to be really important that you tie this, since it's down under so much tension. It's going to be really important that you tie this down tight with your thread. So I still haven't let go of tension of the tubing. That's one. Still haven't let go. That's two. Still have tension on the tubing. Three. Yeah, there we go. And that tubing's not going anywhere. But I'm still Gonna cinch that down even better. 4, 5. That should do it. Now I feel comfortable coming back to the tubing and snipping away right up against the hook shank. Grab your whip finish. Build a nice head. Make sure that loose end does not get knocked loose. There we go. And slice away a thread. There you have it. The rockworm, very durable and somewhat realistic. If you're going to fish a worm, I like this a little better than a San Juan. Good luck.